Well, 60 Minutes is back at it again, running a special where they interviewed federal workers who were lamenting the fact they've been let go. I mean, they're all but crying. I'm sure some of them are crying. But it's fascinating how CBS is basically running cover for Democrats and federal workers who are getting paid when they shouldn't, especially considering the lies they published. In one instance, one of the individuals on CBS was saying, we lost our jobs without notice and we have daycare and all of these things we have to do. And turns out she didn't actually work for the government. She worked for someone else as a consultant. It was like a speech writing company. It's a private company that contracted with a government worker that lost their job when this individual resigned. They are running cover for the Democrat swamp machine, and I'm all here for it because they're losing. This is what the American people voted for. So I got a question for all of you guys. We can kick this off, and often we should kick it off with your thoughts in these shows. Do you know anybody who is mad? Look, I get it. I've had friends and family tell me that they know some people who are terrified over what Elon is doing. But I mean this. I mean, like, do you know anybody who with legitimate cause is actually upset about this? Is there like a Democrat family member being like, but how will the CIA overthrow foreign countries who I can't find on a map without USAID funding? What I hear from most people who are like, Elon is evil or he's destroying the government, they're claiming things that make no sense. They're saying Elon wants to steal your personal information. And it's like, I mean, he ran PayPal and he's running X. He's got a lot of our personal information. I ain't all that concerned about it. I mean, were we better off when it was Mark Zuckerberg or a plethora of unelected bureaucrats whose names you didn't even know? They all had access to your private information. Why am I so? Let me put it this way. There are people who work at the Treasury right now and they're political. How come we're not complaining about whoever those people are having access to our private information, but Elon is the bad one? It's because they have Elon Musk derangement syndrome. You know, and I know I always preface things with this, but this is the distinction we're trying to make. Elon is no saint, okay? A lot of people criticize him for having, what does he have, 13 kids with 4 women? You know, Elon's got a lot of kids. And kids need dads. So I hope he can reconcile that one. He can do the right thing and whatever it needs to do. I'm not going to get into his family business. But there's people who criticize Elon Musk because he's nobody's perfect. And a lot of people say, Tim, we get it. You say it all the time. It's like, I know, but this is the distinction between us and the left. To them, you're perfect or you're the devil. To us, well, there's good, there's bad, there's nuance, there's in between, there's gray area. Some people are kind of bad but have done some good things we really like. Some people are generally good. I think Elon, generally good. But there's a lot of, you know, I don't know, stuff to criticize. That was always allowed. Well, my friends, it's not just the actions that Elon Musk is taking and his response to CBS that have me giddy. There's been a story bubbling up that I've been looking into for the past a couple of weeks. Claims that the D.C. housing market is aflame. That people are fleeing their homes in McLean, Virginia, Arlington, and in like Potomac and Maryland. All of these fat cats who are suckling the teat of USAID and other mass government expenditures are jumping ship, it would seem. Now, I've not found large evidence of a mass widespread exodus. That being said, as the story develops, others are starting to pull up what appears to be a preponderance of evidence that indeed the D.C. housing market is in trouble. You know, when you got somebody who is unjustly receiving like a $30 million government contract to their company and they own a $3 million home in McLean and then that contract disappears overnight, well, I hate to say it, but they're going to have to sell that house. Before they go underwater, it gets seized by the bank, sold at a discount price, and they lose whatever equity they had left. It really does seem right now that the implosion is upon us. So, of course, the corporate press is desperate to run cover, and it's silly. But the layoffs have begun. They're expanding. They're continuing. And, you know, there's this liberal that I know. You know, I have a bunch of friends who went super liberal. I wouldn't call it far left, but they went culty. And it's because they don't care for politics. They care enough just to repeat the lines. And they posted this screenshot of a guy being like, Trump, I voted for you and I work for the government. Please, I need my job. And I'm like, BS, dude. Like, that's not the way to go about it. I really doubt it. I mean, it's possible that some government worker voted for Trump and then it was like, please, Trump, in a comment publicly on Instagram. Dude, come on. I really doubt somebody who supported Trump and got laid off at their government job is posting an Instagram being like, here's the perfect narrative for Democrats about me being screwed over by the president that I voted for. Because it's the game they've been playing the whole time. You bet you regret voting for Trump now. Yeah, no, look, I don't. And I do love when people are like, yeah, aren't you at all worried about the thousands of people losing their jobs at the government? And I was like, millions. I think there's more than a million. I don't know how many total government workers there are, but apparently there's 200,000 probationary employees, and I'm like, all of them got to go. The first time in my lifetime someone's actually said, let's shrink the government. On top of all this, you have Elon Musk posting about how at the Social Security, there are people who are 170 years old, millions, in fact, who are receiving payments. And we have questions. Clearly, that's not real. I think there's actually like one person who's considered 350 years old. Like they actually have someone on. What? What is even going on with this? Yeah. And Musk has pointed out previously with his investigation through Doge that the Social Security numbers are non-duplicative, or they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be duplicated, but basically you can share Social Security numbers with somebody. And so that's where things get really weird. Perhaps that's why when you're doing those identity checks, they don't, you know what's funny? Those identity checks where it's like, put in your Social Security number and your name, and then you got to tell me like, which one of these cars was yours? Which one of these houses have you lived at? Not because they're actually trying to verify your identity, but because they're trying to figure out which person who has this social is the right person. And then if you put like the wrong car, they'll be like, hello, Mr. Jackson. And you're like, I'm Mr. Smith. But that's how the machine is busted. So, my friends, let's take a deep dive today and take a look at how 60 Minutes approach to this. It's insane how they're lying and falsely framing this. Elon Musk has offered up the creation of 69 Minutes. He says he'll actually fund it, and he probably will. My only concern about whether or not he would is that does the man actually have time to give someone the money to fund 69 Minutes? I hope he chooses Michael Malice for that show, and they run it on X. But we're going to talk about this, what's going on with Elon and CBS and all of that, breaking things down, and, of course, the favorability polls for Democrats. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com and pick up a bag of delicious Stand Your Grounds. Castbrew.com. We are launching franchise locations. We want you guys to own a piece of Cast Brew. I don't want to be some big mogul. I don't have time for this, but we want to build community and a decentralized network of places where people can hang out. Castbrew.com, we have over 100 locations, more now. Location requests, not locations physically, but people who want to build these coffee shops. And go to castbrew.com, pick up Stand Your Grounds, a medium roast. We have a bunch of different blends. We got decaf. We got Focus with Mr. Bocus, if you go and search for it. And as always, go to timcastpremium.com to sign up for Rumble Premium using promo code TIM10 to get access to all of our amazing members-only premium content on Rumble. If you go to rumble.com/TimcastIRL or click the link in the description below, it'll send you right to our Green Room show. And check this out. Members-only premium show from last Friday with Roma Nation. If you guys are in the Timcast Discord, you know all about Roma Nation. 120,000 views. Take a look at this. And really amazing. The Nate Kane Green Room show, I highly recommend. He's an FBI whistleblower. He called out the Clintons. And then he goes on to explain, he tells the story of how he was poisoned, about how someone tried to destroy his vehicle, removing the lug nut so he'd crash. Weird things were happening to him. Seems like it may have chilled out, but that's available in the link in the description below. And of course, if you go to timcast.com and click join us, you can join our Discord server. This is a private members community. It's our club, basically, where we've seen many shows launch, like Roma Nation, for instance, Rise of Middle America, podcast that was born in the Timcast Discord at timcast.com. So if you go to timcast.com, you click join us. There's a Discord section that tells you how to sign up. It's 20,000 plus individuals or more hanging out, arguing, debating, and launching shows. So we've got Roma Nation. We've got the Quiet Part podcast. So there's really, really great content that has emerged out of that community. And I hope you guys join because we are trying to build a sphere of influence. If you are sitting at home by yourself watching this and you never tell your friends, you never talk to your friends, the influence only goes so far. But if you're part of a community where you're sharing ideas, it exponentially increases. And that's the game plan, my friends. But let's get started, of course, with the news from time.com. The worst I've ever seen. Trump's mass layoffs leave federal workers baffled and angry. Now, with that headline being the basic context Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. I want to start actually with some of what 60 Minutes had to say about these jobs so we can get into the meat and potatoes of what Elon Musk is complaining about, and then we'll break down where the layoffs are at. And we'll start with this. Mario Nawful tweets, misleading much. 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes claimed Christina Dry was fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of USAID. What they didn't tell you is Christina wasn't a USAID employee. She worked for XLA and Jefferson Partners, providing speechwriting services for USAID Administrator Samantha Power, who resigned. Another day, another half-truth on primetime. Let me play this from 60 Minutes.
People are really scared. I think that 12 days ago, people knew where their next paycheck was coming from. They knew how they were going to pay for their kids' daycare, their medical bills, and then all gone overnight.
All gone overnight for Christina Dry and Adam Dubard, fired this month in the chaotic shutdown of foreign aid distributed by the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Let's just take a quick pause right there, 60 Minutes. I would like to help you understand the scumbaggery. Foreign aid. That's what they said. When they were doing gender studies in Pakistan, when they had a book about gender ideology in Peru, all of these things, that is not foreign aid. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of it you could consider foreign aid, but this is the game they play, the lie. The lie. The reason why their acronym is USAID is because they want you to say US aid. Because to a layman, it sounds like you're saying general foreign aid to starving children or otherwise. We're not. We're talking about financial resources to activist groups for insane reasons, like gender ideology. I mean, that's a big one. There's more, by the way.
USAID. More than 8,000 USAID employees were sent home by the administration.
Good.
They're not looking for competency. They're not looking for if you're good at your job. They're looking for pure loyalty tests. And if you don't give it, you will be punished.
And
yeah, I'm going to pause you right there, good sir. Loyalty tests? Pretty sure Trump tried firing everyone and ripped the name off the building. I don't call that a loyalty test. I call that you're fired.
And they had to leave the building. And these are folks who had
that's usually what happens when you get fired, ma'am. You have to leave the building.
Decades and decades of public service serving USAID across administrations, from, George Bush to Obama to the first Trump administration. And they were never able to walk back in the building again.
There was no process. No one explained to them why they were being relieved.
To my knowledge, they received an email, and then if they didn't leave the building, they were escorted out of the building.
That's what happens when you get fired. And Elon Musk chimed in. So first, let me just reiterate Mario Nawful's point that she didn't even work for USAID. According to Mario Nawful, she worked for XLA and Jefferson Partners, and she only lost her job because Samantha Power resigned. So once again, this is how they manipulate the public, and they lie. Well, Elon Musk has chimed in. Here's a clip. 12 days ago, people knew where their next paycheck was coming from. They knew how they were going to pay for their kids' daycare, their medical bills, and then all gone overnight, says Christina Dry, who was fired in the USAID shutdown. Notice how they phrased that? Fired in the shutdown, because they knew she didn't actually work for USAID. That's the game they're playing. Or at least I can presume that. Otherwise, they would have said she was fired from USAID. Sounds like they knew she didn't actually work there. Well, Elon Musk chimes in right away saying 60 Minutes are such liars. As the community note states, all employees were offered 8 months of pay and benefits. Indeed, they were. Trump offered up full pay and benefits unquestioned until the end of September. Here's my favorite thing about this play that they've made is that do I have this pulled up twice? When Trump said, if you reply to this email, so everybody gets an email and it says, how would you like to get paid until September? Just reply, resign, and you will get pay until the end of September. Democrats came out and said, there's no guarantee you're getting that money. Don't take the offer. What did they mean by that? I've met a lot of people who were saying that the Democrats' intention was to tell people Trump won't pay you. He's lying to you. No. That is not what Democrats were saying. Let me stress this again. Democrats came out at a rally and said, don't take the deal. There's no guarantee you get the money. With many people assuming the implication was Trump was making a deal he would not uphold. Incorrect. Democrats further elaborated. They were intending to have a shutdown of government to stop your payments. What Democrats were actually saying was, if you take this deal and we move to shut the government down in March, you're not getting paid. It wasn't a warning. It was a threat. So, to all the people who don't know where their paychecks are coming from or how they're going to pay their daycare or whatever, I call shenanigans, because the Trump administration has already offered up these severance packages, of which I believe the estimates are around 70,000 people have already accepted. Here we go from Time Magazine. I'm having a good day. How about you? The worst I've ever seen. Trump's mass layoffs leave federal workers baffled and angry. I don't care. Now, the federal workers, of course, they filed a lawsuit. I think I have this. We have the story here from Reuters. Unions sue Trump. Oh, can you get out of here, Reuters? Mass firings of federal employees. It's probably a blocked article. Okay, we actually have the article. 5 unions sued the Trump administration on Wednesday, seeking to block what they called the possible mass firing of hundreds of thousands of federal employees who resist pressure to accept buyouts. I'm just sorry. I don't understand why I'm supposed to care. I have to be completely honest. In this world, okay, there are harsh realities. There are wild animals that may stalk and murder you in your sleep when we live out in the middle of nowhere. The idea that you are entitled to my money as an American taxpayer, that you just get to have it, is just so shockingly offensive to me. If you work for, like Blockbuster Video, worked for, I think there's still one left, so maybe you do. And one day they said, we're closing the store down because we ain't selling the products. I feel bad for you. That's the market. It's unfortunate, through no fault of your own. The government, they at gunpoint, they take our money. Now, I'm not one of these like hardcore no taxation people. I think a functioning government isn't totally bad, largely the way we have it today. Recently, I don't know if many of you have heard, Liberated Brands, I think it's the name of the company, which is like Billabong and Volcom. These are big mall stores that sell clothing, and it's largely urban action sports related. It's big news for those of us who grew up in that era. Bankruptcy, shutting down 1,000 locations, over 1,000 locations. This is a collapse of our malls and our physical commerce. I feel bad for these people. If you worked for one of these stores, I'm worried. You know why? Because you did everything right and you worked for a private company that through voluntary exchange sought to support a product for the public. And as it waned, you end up losing your job through no fault of your own. For that, I say, man, that really sucks. I wish there's something we can do. Dave Portnoy during COVID raised $50 million for small businesses to try and keep them afloat. I respect all of that. But if you work for the government where it is propped up by forced taxation and these jobs are paid for through nonsense, and you're funding through USAID garbage, you are stealing our money and flushing it down the toilet, and then you go, don't fire me, it's not fair. I'm like, dude, you are a leech on the system, and I have zero sympathy for anyone who works in the government. I'm sorry, man. You could come to me and say, Tim, I've worked for the government for all these years, I did this great job, and I'm getting laid off, and I have a family, and I'm like, look, I can understand that's scary for you. But the idea that you would enter into these government jobs where you knew, and I'm saying it's largely about the bloat we're looking at right now. Like if you're a cop or something, you get laid off because of defund the police. Yeah, I'm going to be mad about that. But if you're a good cop, if you are, which is most, and I don't calm down everybody. But if you work for USAID and you got laid off, or you work for one of these nonprofits that was suckling the teat of government corruption, I'm sorry, I ain't shedding a tear for you, but I lost my job. I don't care. I literally don't. You guys were leeching off a system in damaging our economy for God knows what. And I'm supposed to be mad that we've cut off the corruption? Businesses, voluntary exchange. It's sad when a business dies. Government, involuntary seizure of assets to fund garbage nobody wants. I am not crying for you. Sorry. Well, here we go. These unions are suing. They say in a complaint filed in D.C. federal court, the unions accuse the White House and others in the executive branch of undermining Congress's role in creating and funding a federal workforce, violating a separation of powers. The plaintiffs include the United Auto Workers, National Treasury Employees Union, National Federation of Federal Employees, International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, and International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. I hate unions. I despise unions. Now, hold on. Hear me out. I like collective bargaining. I like this is the trick they do, okay? Unionization, totally good thing. I'm a huge fan. Unions, I'm talking about these big national organizations with special interests that exploit the laws and do nothing for their workers. I have been in 2 different unions, and all they did was put the boot on my face. They didn't help me. They took my money, and they did nothing. And they said, but Tim, unions got us the 40-hour work week, the 5-hour work week. Or, I'm sorry, the 5-day work week, the 8-hour day. And I'm like, I don't care if you want to make an argument about classical collective bargaining. I'm fine with it. If you have a company and your employees all negotiate against you through collective bargaining, forming a union was supposed to be a group of the employees come together and say, we want to negotiate collectively because that gives us power to make demands at the company. And the company can say, here's what we can and can't afford. And those negotiations are, I think they're fine. But now you have these monolithic special interest Democrat voting unions, not so much the last time around, but they don't focus on collective bargaining. They're their own corporations. They're labor corporations. They might as well be staffing agencies. You're forced to join them. I'm not a fan of any of that. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to mention 10 defendants were named, including Trump, the heads of agencies, the Department of Defense, Internal Revenue Service, Consumer Financial Bureau, Protection Bureau, and the acting director of the Office of Personnel Management. Last week, some unions sued the Trump administration to block the buyouts. They're doing this because it is a legal means of reducing bloat. But the unions get a portion of all of that money. This is corruption to the most extreme degree. Your money taken by force, spent on things you don't want it to be spent on, and unions as intermediaries get a piece of every paycheck that goes out. Then they use the money they stole from you to sue your president. It is insanity. Let me say it again. People get hired to work for the federal government. It's your money. You don't want it spent on these people, and you don't want it spent on gender studies and putting beagles' heads in cages full of flies that eat their faces. Yeah, that actually happened. NIH, gain of function research. We don't want our money spent on this. I would say most people probably don't want their money taken at all. But they do take it by force. They then decide they're going to hire people without your consent. Those people then pay a portion to these unions who use the money they receive to sue the president you elect to try and stop it. Now, ain't that something? And here's where we are. Well, my friends, back to the Time magazine article, of course, because we'll actually read it. A mid-level probationary worker with the U.S. Department of Agriculture read the letter in disbelief. It was from the USDA's Human Resource Department explaining he no longer had a job. The letter said the decision had been made based on your performance, but it didn't make sense to him. There's no way to tie me to a specific performance issue because I'm 6 weeks on the job, says the employee who works at Phoenix and, like others interviewed on this report, spoke with Time on the condition of anonymity. He says no one had mentioned any issues with his work before receiving the letter. My dude, I'm going to give the least amount of sympathy I can to a dude like this. 6 weeks on the job. Bro, that means that Trump got elected. The whole year he's promising to fire all of these employees. Trump gets elected, and then you're like, I think I'll take a job in the federal government. Bro, are you kidding? I could not have less. In fact, I have opposite sympathy. I have schadenfreude. Okay, you knew what Trump was campaigning on. You knew what the American people wanted. You took this job, got fired, and you're like, oh, I am shocked. Well, I'm not. I'm glad. The USD employs among thousands of federal workers across the country with layoffs that began on Thursday with little prior notice. Targeting probationary workers, those who have been employed by the federal government for less than 1 to 2 years are easier to fire. Indeed. The layoffs have shaken both federal employees and the unions that represent them, prompting widespread condemnation and setting the stage for future legal battles. Many in the federal workforce see the aggressive nature of the cuts as proof that the Trump administration isn't just trying to cut costs, but dismantle the federal workforce and reduce its capacity to serve the public. I feel like right now the administration is kind of demonizing federal workers, says a senior IRS agent from New York who was hired in July and fully expects to receive a termination notice in the coming days. Maybe you can take that 8-month severance. Yeah. There's another story that I didn't bring it up, but I do want to bring it up because what we're going to segue into now is the second portion of CBS's 60 Minutes and the criticism that has erupted. That is, what would have happened to this country if Kamala Harris and Democrats had actually managed to win? Many people are pointing out, based on this 60 Minutes interview, that we'd be like Germany, where SWAT teams raid people's homes for posting memes. Which brings me to, first, an important article, which I'll show you this, where what Trump said, sparking outrage among Democrats. And then we will talk about what's going on in Germany. And then we'll go in a deep dive into why Trump is right. He is correct. Trump suggests no laws are broken if he's saving his country. Uh-oh. Whoa. What? Trump said he who saves his country does not violate any law. Oh, boy. Well, I'm seeing Democrats post quotes of this saying, we are so cooked. Trump is Hitler and blah, blah, blah. I do not appreciate, nor do I respect the idea that a president would violate the law, the Constitution, legislation, or otherwise. But Trump is factually correct. And you can interpret his statement in a couple of ways. One, that he's saying he intends to break the law because he's saving his country, which is worrying considering saving the country is subjective, although I do think Trump is largely saving the country. But factually speaking, and Democrats, you can clip this, you can cry about it all day and night. There have been many world leaders, including U.S. presidents, who have broken the law and violated the Constitution for the purpose of saving their country as they interpreted it. And they're regarded historically as heroes. So come at me, bro. Trump isn't wrong. There's the spirit of the statement and the fact of the statement. The fact, well, you can certainly break the law. You can certainly violate the law, even if you're trying to save your country. The point is, he who saves his country, when Abraham Lincoln saved the United States and he violated the law, like to an extreme degree, suspension of habeas corpus in the corridor from Pennsylvania to D.C., the arrest of the Maryland legislature. I mean, these things are an affront to the Constitution and the freedoms we believe to be true and correct. But at the time, Abraham Lincoln was like, law be damned. Now, do we look back on those actions and say he was a criminal who should be arrested? Certainly there are some, but largely he's regarded as a hero, and he was never held to account by the judiciary or the government for the actions he took, which not only violated the law, but violated the Constitution and resulted in the death of so many people. Why? He saved the country. In that regard, a man who saves his country, we don't look back on and say they broke the law. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Donald Trump is Abraham Lincoln-esque at a time of civil war. We're not there. Maybe we're close to a bleeding Kansas. Of course, I've talked about the fears of civil war. Excuse me. But there is a point to be made. Depending on the severity of the clash, you could look at the deep state, USAID, and all of these things that are happening. If we regard this on the scale of serious internal conflict bordering on a civil war, should Trump prevail, there will be no question as to whether he broke the law or not. If Trump loses, he will be considered an evil man who violated the law and he will be put in prison. That's the reality. The phrasing of what Trump is saying, again, I want to make sure it's clear. You can certainly break the law to save your country. You are violating the law. On the surface, the hard text and the hard numbers of the statement, Trump is wrong. Historically speaking, across the world, and the history is written by the victors. And should Trump prevail in gutting the deep state and restructuring government, Democrats call it evil. Republicans call it saving the country. That's the important context that people need to understand in Trump's statement. I gotta be honest, I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm not going to play this game that Democrats want to play where they say Trump is Hitler. It's like, this country is facing dire straits. Our economy, we're $36 trillion in debt. We're spread thinly around the world. We can't defend our allies. We're embroiled in a multi-$100 billion war in Ukraine. We're dumping ordnance. It's nuts. Special forces butting up with World War III. Yo, we ain't doing too hot. So the question about what happens to this country with mass illegal migration, porous borders, illegal immigrants voting, the country, I don't know, could survive much more of this. And maybe that was the intention. And I think what Trump is basically saying is he will do anything to restore America's borders, its economy, security, strength, etc. And should he, No one's going to come after him claiming he broke the law by doing so. But again, we'll see. Now, many people are pointing to the CBS episode, which is not just about the federal workers, but about what's currently happening in Germany and why this is what we were turning into. Take a look at this clip. I got 2 clips for you.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher
Yeah.
if you insult someone in the internet.
Why?
Because in internet, it stays there. If we are talking here face to face, you insult me, I insult you, okay, finish. But if you in the internet, if I insult you or a politician,
That sticks around forever.
yeah.
The prosecutors explain German law also prohibits the spread of malicious gossip, violent threats, and fake quotes.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
The punishment for breaking hate speech laws can include jail time for repeat offenders.
That's Germany for you. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by the history of Germany, are they? You know, it's funny because what are we supposed to say, you know? So I do want to come back to this one, but take a look at this. Libs of TikTok has this post from 60 Minutes. CBS joined German police to conduct a raid on a citizen for posting a meme online.
It's 6:01 on a Tuesday morning, and we were with state police as they raided this apartment in northwest Germany.
Hier ist die Polizei, wir mussten bitte mal mit Ihnen reden.
Inside, 6 armed officers searched a suspect's home, then seized his laptop and cell phone. Prosecutors say those electronics may have been used to commit a crime.
Oh, yeah?
The crime, posting a racist cartoon online. At the exact same time across Germany, more than 50 similar raids played out. Part of what prosecutors say is a coordinated effort to curb online hate speech in Germany.
Yeah, Germans are Nazis. Their state has been authoritarian the whole time. I don't see anything having changed. Maybe Nazi is not the right way to phrase it, but you know, maybe it's East Germany that actually won, I guess. Now, a lot of people are saying this is what would have happened to us should the Democrats have won. And that's why when Trump says something to the effect of a man who saves his country violates no law. I wonder what would have happened. I genuinely wonder. I don't know. What would have happened if Kamala Harris did win and we found ourselves in this country where they made the argument you don't have free speech? The argument certainly exists, and let me explain. There are exceptions to free speech that are tolerated by you or I, and you have to ask yourself how much you're willing to tolerate. Threats of imminent violence, threats in general, are not considered free speech. There's something we talked about. I think it's called the Miller test, and the question is it artistic? Is it politically, required? Is it obscene? Well, in the United States, if somebody says, go do this thing at this time and creates an imminent threat of danger, that is not free speech. You are actually allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater. That's a lie. It's a mistake. Whenever you hear these people be like, well, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Yes, you can. You literally can. That was, I believe it was Brandenburg v. Ohio, and that was a long time ago. It's amazing people get this stuff wrong. But the issue at play is, if someone, let me ask you guys this, and you can comment, you can chat. Give me a 1 if you believe people should be allowed to incite imminent threats of violence or criminal actions. Give me a 2 if you think, no, there should be some restrictions. And I'm gonna let you ruminate a little bit on that one. I'll tell you why. The argument from the left is that hate speech is an attack on someone. This is the argument they make in Germany. It's an argument they make in the United States. The left does. That when you insult or use hate speech, you are actually causing pain to a person, emotional pain, and there's no distinction. They say that, and when you post online something like insert group of people should have this happen to them, you are inciting violence. So if someone said something like, we should deport insert group of people, well, you're inciting because racists are going to go and they're going to start taking action on this stuff. That's actually not how it works in the United States. In the United States, you're allowed to express opinions on this one. I see it's actually rather split. The reason I bring this up is that there are free speech absolutists, of which they are very rare, although some of you may be. Free speech absolutists, and it's funny that I argue with people who tell me that they don't exist. They certainly do. I have had debates with people who say you should be allowed to speak literally anything you want, instructions, time, place, and methods, because words don't mean anything. It's the actions. And it's funny because it's very George Carlin-esque. George Carlin has this bit in the 90s where he uses every racial slur in the book and then says, who cares? It's the person and what they do, not the words. I don't completely agree, but there is a challenge in that. If the Democrats actually won, you would have a challenge to the Supreme Court arguing that the use of racist language creates an atmosphere of fear, which is discriminatory and violates the 1964 Civil Rights Act. They'd say something like, do you make money on X? When you post on X, you are providing a public accommodation. That is, like any other newspaper, information in exchange for revenue generation. If you decide to post things that are racist, you are violating the public accommodation considerations of those groups. Therefore, it's illegal. That's the play they'd make. I guarantee it. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make that play as it is. They're not likely going to win with this current administration and the Supreme Court. If Hillary Clinton won, you'd have a 6-3 Democrat, liberal, far left Supreme Court. Somebody would come out and say, the client here and all of these individuals on YouTube and on X are running businesses where they make money. When did we ever allow a business to publicly disparage one racial group, one religion? We don't allow that. That's the argument they'd make. Think about it. If you, under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, if you open a cheeseburger shop and you put up a big sign disparaging a race of people, you will get shut down. They will come, they will fine you, they will force you to take it down. They will say, you can't do this. It's illegal. Why would the argument be any different for the media? They'd say, these media brands, these personalities, but guess what? Through decentralization, we are all running businesses now. Even if you make $1, they'll ask you, do you make money on the platform? Yes. Would you like to make more money? I would. When you disparage this group of people, you are, I'm not saying the argument would work or fly, but with a 6-3 liberal Supreme Court, they'd agree. They'd be like, well, certainly. You know, you're running a business. Are you selling merch? Most influencers sell merch. Now you're saying you're running a clothing store and you're choosing to disparage insert group. That's how they get you. With Donald Trump winning, we have dodged a tremendous bullet. Now, I do want to get into my favorite element here, but before we do, we want to drag CBS a little bit more on how they approach free speech with a shout out to Marco Rubio. This one's going to melt your face off. CBS claiming the Holocaust was caused by free speech. Are you kidding me? Here you go.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views. And
free speech in Germany, where they famously burned books. Okay.
Some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship
I have to disagree with
was
you.
specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history.
Can I just point out that these are the people that constantly say they were burning books. They were burning books. They didn't want us to have free speech. And now that we've won, they're saying free speech was used was weaponized. Are you kidding me? I get it. It's just one lady, but this is CBS, Face the Nation. This is supposed to be a premier news program. You see, they're going to say whatever they have to say at any time to attack whatever they don't like. They will make it up. The Nazis burned books. They opposed free speech. When you want to ban these books from schools, you're like the Nazis. Okay, well, look, I'm for censorship of adult content for kids. Have been the whole time. Think that's inappropriate. But I do think we should have you're for free speech? Yes, I'm for free speech to a great degree. I'm not an absolutist, but people should be able to express their ideas even if they're abhorrent, because I'd like to know that and not associate with them or do business with them. Oh, well, as you know, Free speech was weaponized in Nazi Germany to create a what? It's like no matter what you say, they're going to say that. You guys ever see that meme about racism where it's like literally no matter what you do, you're racist? If white people move into an area, it's called gentrification. It's racist. If white people move out, it's white flight. It's racist. Yeah, we get it. This is the game they play with narrative control. It's not working because people have cognitive faculties, meaning at a certain point they say, hey, those are contradictions. I'm done listening to you. Welcome to the modern state, my friends. But let's revel in all of this. We do have this from the Times of India. Not super familiar with this publication, but Elon Musk teases 69 minutes amid President Donald Trump's attack on 60 Minutes sparks social media frenzy. Yo, Elon, please do this. He's probably joking, but he said he wanted to create a show called X Media Presents 69 Minutes. Okay. Please do it. I saw Michael Malice responded saying, I will do the show. It would be the greatest thing ever. A semi-satirical call out of, think what we all thought Daily Show was supposed to be 20 years ago. Calling out the hypocrisies and the contradictions in the establishment. Only it's not on the Daily Show anymore. That is weird cookie cutter garbage. And Jon Stewart is one, I will always say this. Jon Stewart is a hero as it pertains to the 9/11 first responders, and I will always, always give him praise before any criticism just for that. The man has fought so hard for the 9/11 first responders that I have no problem putting aside anything to shake his hand and say thank you so much for what you did for these men and for their families and for these women and for the people negatively affected. I respect that to the greatest degree I can. That being said, he's really bent the knee. In modern politics, he has become a coward. And you know what? I really do mean it on the 9/11 first responder stuff. But that doesn't mean you get a free pass on the cowardice of the Daily Show as it exists today and the opinions he's put out there and the things he's stated. I won't do it. But you know what? Not like he's been perfect, but I'd love to see this show. Where are we at? Currently, this is one of my favorite elements of this story about draining the swamp. Washington, D.C. gets Trump bump in luxury home market. Really? Trump bump, you say? The Trump admin, business leaders, and others have contributed. So what is this? The Washington, D.C. area has been enjoying a Trump bump. The so-called Trump bump started around November when the nation's capital saw a major increase in demand for luxury homes worth at least $5 million. And has continued into the new year, according to the agency D.C. managing partner, Nurit Kum. Usually, houses above $5 million in November, for example, a year ago, they were 8 sales or so. She told Fox Business, between November, December, we had 20 sales above $5 million. A huge jump and a lot of cash. Did you catch this? Did you? I love this timeline. Fox, we love you. Let me try this in a secondary framing, if I may. A year ago, there were 8 sales. This year, there were 20. I love how they're saying this shows the luxury market has improved. And I'm just sitting here being like, so there are more houses are selling in D.C.? Could it be that people are fleeing because they know their jobs are up and the corruption is getting gutted and Doge is moving in? You see, it can go one of two ways. If the amount of houses available for sale have remained static, then we can certainly say this is the Trump bump. Hoorah. More people are buying houses and want to be in D.C. That would debunk the narrative. But my friends, certainly the narrative could be more houses are selling because more people are selling them. But thank you. Well, to explore this issue, we need only actually look at some other sources to determine what's really going on. At the same time they published this story, a day before, housing markets with a lot of federal workers have been thrown into disarray by Trump's RTO order and layoff fears. So I love Fox saying, look how many luxury homes have sold. That means Trump is helping the market. And I'm kind of like, it means the people are selling more luxury homes. Okay. And the other issue is at a discount rate. Man, I love this story. The likelihood, in my opinion, and that's all it is, when you look at all these stories about interviews with people saying outright they're panic selling their houses, why would a house sell? Why would more houses sell now than the year before Trump got elected? I love how for no reason they're like, that means Trump is driving people to D.C. What What actions has Trump taken that would indicate more people want to live by DC? That's stupid. What likely happened is that people are panic selling their luxury homes for discount prices. And a home that's being sold for $6 million probably went for 7, 8, or 9 before. And the person who lives there says, we're going to lose a lot of equity on this one. But with the loss of these contracts, we're in trouble. Sell now before we're underwater. Sell while you can. So look at all these luxury homes being sold. Yeah, at a discount rate. I mean, I don't know that that's true, but I mean, we can start digging into these homes and look at their prices. And it looks like, according to Zillow, the DC housing market prices have been plummeting, indicating that luxury homes are not seeing a bump, that they're dropping the prices and panic selling. Take a look at this story from Fortune. They say the Trump administration's return to office mandate and layoffs are disrupting housing markets with big federal footprints. Trump has said that if federal employees opt to stay remote, they will be dismissed. In addition, Elon Musk's Doge is targeting agencies for steep budget and personnel cuts. Since the inauguration, I've met with a few people, including one federal government employee, who are selling specifically because of anticipated return to office orders. Chavez spoke to a client who had plans to upgrade to a larger home, but he canceled those plans because he's worried about losing his job due to restructuring of government jobs. Washington, D.C.-based Redfin agent Stuart Naranch said, Narank, how you pronounce it, said a couple he worked with to buy their dream home a few years ago are now thinking about putting the home up for sale as they seek to be closer to public transportation. They both work for the government and want a more convenient commute because they'll need to return to in-person work soon. I got a thread for y'all. This is from Lauren on X. Snarky vet wrecking ball saying they do things for their state, featured in Media Matters for the alt-right reasons. Haha. She says, round 2, cracks knuckles. First 10 are McLean, Virginia. Second set of 10 are Fairfax. She says she has I have a subscription to Truth Finder that's on pulling jobs. Looking at the homes being sold, this is all publicly available, by the way, on a variety of sites. I will try to avoid any overtly specific information, but I'm only going to show one example. A senior technical director of health and financing for the World Bank. There's a big list of individuals who are selling their homes, and their jobs are all government jobs. So, my friends, when they say the Trump bump, come on, Fox. This is actually the Trump panic, okay? Now, I've seen a lot of people post Zillow, and they say, look at all the houses for sale in D.C. You can actually search by time, and it does not seem to be a significant increase over any other market. However, new reporting is starting to emerge, suggesting that we are seeing a gradual increase in the amount of homes for sale. Volume is going up and value is going down, indicating something real is happening and people are starting to panic. You know, I'm here for it. Hey, we got YouGov data. Not that YouGov is the end-all be-all, but we have this story from YouGov. The Democrats in Congress favorability. We can see here 54% unfavorable, 38.9% favorable, and dropping. Well, that's sad for Democrats, I get, but certainly the Republicans must be worse. No, they're actually a solid point better, stable, and improving. Largely stable, there's been some dips, but it seems to be that they're on a slight upward trend. The Republican Party has 1 point more favorability according to YouGov. With everything Donald Trump is doing, where we currently are at as of the beginning of February is general favorability for the Republican Party and a decline in favorability for Democrats. So please, please roll around in it, Democrats. I got a story coming up for you guys at noon. You're going to love it. David Hogg, he's been vice chair of the DNC for less than 2 weeks, and he's already embroiled in a corruption scandal. The way things are going, I think the American people are going to be pretty happy with the direction Trump is taking this country and Elon Musk. And I'm here for it, man. Daily Beast, such liars. Elon Musk joins MAGA crusade against 60 Minutes. MAGA crusade? Aren't we over this? I guess SNL just did a bit the other day where Tom Hanks plays a racist Trump supporter on Black Jeopardy. And I'm just sitting here being like, please, I beg you, don't stop. Don't stop. Keep doing this. I'd love it if if the Republicans won the midterms, if Trump got the Republican support throughout the midterms, and then he got an additional 2 years to enact all of these policy changes without interference. Two squishy Republicans deviate, and that's all the Democrats need to start mucking everything up. if the midterms come, and as they typically tend to, we see a swing because Democrats will panic, they'll rally, and then the people who are winning become complacent. If that happens, Trump will be impeached. So I say unto you, I hope they keep playing this game. I hope that David Hogg continues his corruption scandals. And then come time for the midterms, Trump's going to be like, we're abolishing the income tax. Here's my shout out to Trump. Trump, you should right now by executive order just sign being like, the income tax is hereby abolished. Because of course it won't stand up in court. But I want to see the Democrats going on TV and being like, we have to take your money. And then there were so many people when when the stimulus checks went out, the COVID payments, and it said Donald J. Trump on it. Legit, there are people who are like, Trump got me paid. I don't care. If Trump says, I'm going to take away the income tax and go full tariff or a fair tax, sales tax, and the Democrats are like, no. Could you imagine? I think Republicans might get a super. If Donald Trump, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this in a strange way because you know they're going to clip me. If Donald Trump tries to abolish the income tax by executive order, and then Democrats sue to defend the income tax right before the midterms, Donald Trump and the Republicans will win, assuming Democrats are defending the income tax, a supermajority. If Democrats really do sue to defend the income tax in Congress. Okay, so the idea was given. The reason I did that is because what Democrats will do is I'll say something like, I love this game. Liberals and Democrats manipulate people by taking things out of context intentionally. They look for those moments. You could say something like, I was hanging out with my buddy Jim, and he said, I just don't like chicken wings. And I was shocked because who doesn't like chicken wings? They'll then clip out me saying, I don't like chicken wings, which is a quote of someone else, and say, look, Tim Pool said this thing. And they'll do it. They'll do it of that. They do it for everything. So that's how you got to say these things. You have to put commas. Donald Trump should try to abolish the income tax. If Democrats defend it, the Republicans will win if Democrats are defending the income tax, a supermajority. And then what they'll do is they'll clip that out and just make a jump cut, and they'll still believe it. I love these people. It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where he had the babysitter. And I hope you guys know these references because this is classic Simpsons. And he did the interview with like Hard Rock or whatever the show is called. And the clock is behind him and the hands just keep jumping to random times because they've clearly edited it to make him say things he didn't say. Sweet, sweet can. That's what the media does. That's what liberals do. And it's fascinating that if you go back to the 90s, they mock it on The Simpsons. This is what the established media machine does to people. It's a dirty game they play, isn't it? But thanks to the podcast era, shows like this and people like you watching shows like this, we are breaking through that noise. One of the reasons why I like doing these live streams in the morning, 10 a.m. to 11. We're still trying to figure it out, but we'll have another segment coming up at noon. I'll grab some of your super chats right now. So super chat if you have any questions, and we'll give a few minutes to your comments and thoughts on this one. Share the show with everyone you know. We're going to be ramping these shows up every morning. Don't forget, we're also on Rumble at rumble.com/Timcast, or go to timcastpremium.com in order to sign up for Rumble Premium for all of our exclusive behind-the-scenes content. We got feature-length documentaries. We've got the Green Room Uncensored behind-the-scenes show. I'm really excited today because we've got an active-duty combat vet, crazy stories, talking with Phil Labonte. I'm hoping it pans out with scheduled. I usually don't like to announce things before we film them because, maybe something happens. But it's going to be really interesting. Really fascinating stuff. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, but also join the Discord community at timcast.com. Click join us, become a member. And then once you do, you go to the Discord section. I'll tell you how to sign up. 20,000 plus people hanging out in a community. They make shows. People are making comics. People are starting businesses together. Listening to a show like this, if you're inspired, if you're informed, is one thing. But from here, joining up with others, elaborating on these concepts, asking these questions, making friends is how you build a sphere of influence which shuts down the deep state, the narrative machine. We can't, look, during the Trump era, we had the silent Trump voter. Because people were watching Joe Rogan, they were watching Steven Crowder, they were watching Dan Bongino, they were watching Timcast IRL, and they knew, but they were still scared to speak up. Why? No connections, total decentralization. Now, total decentralization is good for a lot of reasons, but when the broadcast tower was telling you Orange Man bad, the presumption everyone had was, my office must be anti-Trump, and I'm scared if I speak up, I'll get in trouble. But what happens when you join a community? What happens when you know, nah, man, I see all the people who agree with me. This is a lie. Then you have a sphere of influence. And now what I'm hearing, it's fascinating. People at the workplace being like, most of my employees are pro-Trump. I didn't even know because people were scared to speak up. Get in the Discord community and you will get access to our uncensored call-in shows. You can call into Timcast IRL, talk to us. We got big plans. The Culture War podcast, where you, as members, will sit down at the table and debate me, liberals, conservatives, and be a part of that conversation. It is currently being set up, and we hope to have our first episode hopefully within a month or two. The reason why I say that is because baby's on the way, and I don't know if we can effectively run that when at any moment you might be like, oh, there's no shows today. I wonder what happened. And it's like, well, I'll be in the hospital for however long it takes. Let me grab some of your super chats, my friends, and get your comments on these stories. Again, smash that like button. Archer Sterling says, people get fired all the time, but now that the privileged class gets hit, they cry. Indeed. I have no sympathy. In the private sector, like I mentioned, Liberated Brands, these are companies that I care about. I grew up with. I had a Billabong hoodie when I was a kid. Going bankrupt and shutting down 1,000 locations is sad to me. It's sad. But you know what? Those are the rules. That's the game we play. I feel bad for them, but it happens. The idea that this should never happen to government employees is psychotic. Sooner or later, the money is coming dry. The idea that the government can run infinitely with your money without question is a psychotic worldview. Cilantro Industrial Complex says, my girlfriend's aunt asked during lunch out loud, did anyone here vote for Trump? I'm going to lose my job. She works for large university. Colleges should be defunded a long time ago. Agree. I'd say to them, yeah, I did. Look, if I was with family, I got no problem saying it. I'm like, look, they know. I go hang out with family and they're like, not only do we know that you voted for Trump, Tim, but you tried as hard as you can to get him elected. So when you lose your job, I'm going to say, I wish you the best of luck. You have no right to be immune from market forces in government-funded positions. And the political force that has come is the market change. The market has dictated through the votes that Trump shall be president, and that means the money is gone. You deserve no special protections. When a mom and pop shop gets shut down and they lose their livelihood, you think you deserve something better than them. No, I say no. Sooner or later, the bill comes due, and the government doesn't get to run infinitely off of our money with no checks and no accountability. So you lost your job. That's what happens. Alabama Elise says an NIH employee was fired and she has gone viral. Name is Katie Sandlin. She has made a GoFundMe and it's pathetic. She made horrible choices, loved Fauci, and is now suffering the consequences. Look, man, if you quit your job to go work for Pickle Ice Cream Company and then like 6 months later you lost your job, I'm going to be like, bro, like, did you really think pickle ice cream was going to take off? Well, but you know, pickles are good and ice cream is good, and why wouldn't they be good together? And it's like, well, some things you don't mix. To be honest, how would you even make pickle ice cream? The salt content would cause it wouldn't freeze properly. You'd have to have a much lower temperature. If you did something so dumb, how much are we going to bend over for you guys? Let's grab some more here, my friends. What do we got here? Valkyrie says, a great example of media clipping is the I think Coolsville sucks clip from Scooby-Doo movie. Just use that for an example. Oh, dude, they do it all the time. One of my favorite is when, who was it? Was it New York Mag? I think it was New York Magazine. I had a quote that was 2 distinct stories told over an hour. And I said something like, I wanted to go out and film the protests. They wanted to go out and interview Jesse Jackson. This is during Ferguson. So I went out to the protests and I did a big live stream. Well, anyway, we end up leaving and then blah, 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 20 minutes later. So at the end of all of it, they wanted to stick around and film protests later on in the week. And when I went out and filmed riot coverage, we got 35,000 concurrents. It was the biggest concurrent viewership for Vice. When they went out to film these protests, guess who got more views? So what they did was they took that quote, guess who got more views, deleted everything. And so they quoted me in the magazine saying, Tim Pool said, I wanted to go out and cover the riots. They wanted to interview Jesse Jackson, quote, And then Poole said, quote, guess who got more views? So Vice threatened to sue, I guess. They then wrote in their correction, the quote was removed due to, the quote from Tim Poole was removed due to an error. The reaction then being, Vice got mad at me. A bunch of people got mad at me saying, Tim lied to New York Mag. And no, you see the game they played. They intentionally took me out of context to make a sensational story, which then got a threat to them for their publication. And then they phrased the correction in a way that made it sound like I made the mistake. These people are scumbags. I learned my lesson a long time ago. I know the rules. What do we got? Interior Attack 8 says, Tim, it was pretty awesome seeing the Timcast sponsor in the ARCA race at Daytona this weekend. Shout out to Cody Dennison. Daytona. Wow. That was so epic. There was a big crash. It wasn't that bad. I'm glad everybody was okay. If you watched, there was a pretty big crash. I can't tell exactly what happened. We'll probably get a follow-up. But I think what happened was Cody got bumped from behind, which caused him to drift, slam into the wall, and then all the other cars started bouncing. I don't think anybody flipped over. There was some like shell damage in the vehicles and stuff like this. At Daytona in the main event, there was a big crash, I believe. But shout out to Cody. It is an honor and a privilege to see that Timcast car driving at Daytona and in these major events. It's super amazing. Like it is a dream. You know, when I'm hanging out with friends, we were hanging out at the casino, Allison and I, and the TVs are on Fox Sports, and we can see the Timcast car driving. We are so lucky to have been able to sponsor Cody and help him out. So shout out, really, really awesome stuff. My friends, we're going to wind things down for this here morning show. So don't forget to smash the like button, smash it, share the show with everyone you know. Of course, we're available on all podcast platforms. We're available on Rumble. I want to give a shout out to Rumble, man. Taking the industry by storm and growing. It's been absolutely fantastic. A lot of really awesome moves underway. And I'll just say this to everybody. Since we've launched on the platform, our viewership has grown massively. So it's been really tremendous to see the Rumble audience coming to watch, which is huge, and our YouTube numbers. And all the other platforms have been growing, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. I genuinely believe that with the work they're doing, with Chris Pavlovski's leadership at Rumble and the moves they've made, there's a strong possibility that Rumble becomes the premier video podcasting platform. So this is the bet that I made when we worked this deal, and I said, we got to get on this train before we lose it. Spotify, love you guys, love Spotify, but they are trying to play catch up on video podcasting. They recently converted their audio to video podcasts. They want people to go onto Spotify and watch video, but they're 10 years behind. YouTube actually banned and suppressed their video podcast hosts. Insane. Rumble built around this, knowing it was the future. And my bet is they're on top of this better than anybody else. They have a lot to grow because they're a newer company relative to these other big behemoths, but they're in the position that matters the most. Rumble is video podcasting, and these other platforms are trying to be. If Rumble can use that lead in this particular space, which is taking over with the podcast presidency, it's going to be big. It's going to be big, baby. Smash that like button. Next segment's coming up at noon. Don't miss it. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all then.